everybody, this is Sisi here in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, and I am here to bring you your latest trend report for the week of February 16th. I hope you guys had a beautiful Valentine's Day with your loved ones and had lots of champagne and chocolates and candies. So what's going on in Honolulu real estate? Okay, well, big news. Guess what? Median home prices have fallen to $970,000. And personally, I think that's okay because as a local person, the prices were getting very high, and that's partly because of the interest rates being so low. Now things are normalizing a little bit, and I think that this is a good time for buyers in terms of the prices getting a little bit lower. Obviously, the interest rates are still hovering at a little over 6.5%. So for instance, a single family home is looking at a 6.25% interest rate with 0 points and 30-year. And then we have the condo townhouse interest rate being at 6.6, 0 points, 30 years. Now, I encourage you to take a look at all of your financing options, including the 10-year ARM, which is at a 5.6%, and that's quite a difference. So it's always best to review everything with your lender as well as your realtor, because the 10-year ARM might be what you would consider if you need to get into a home right now, because it's so much less in terms of the 30-year, but also most people don't stay in their homes longer than 10 years. So they tend to cycle out at the 7 or 8 year mark, depending upon their family situation. The kids could be getting bigger, they need more space, or it could be the reverse, which is downsizing. So it's always nice to kind of look at your different options. If you do happen to stay in the home longer than the 10 years, you can always refinance at that time and go through the process again. So there's always different options, and talk to your lender as well as your realtor about it. So this week I wanted to share with you something that is very interesting for me. It's a podcast that I've been listening to called the Hoffman Process Podcast. And I went through the Hoffman process about 2.5 years ago. It's a week-long retreat where you kind of leave everything behind, including your cell phones, electronics, and you just go in all in and do a lot of self-reflective work, journaling, visualizations, and it makes you really aware of who you are as a person and your patterns. They talk a lot about negative love syndrome and kind of the patterns that you took on unknowingly as a child that manifests itself as an adult and even as a parent. So about 3 years ago, I did the process and I found it to be something that was life-changing. It really was. And I use some of these skills today. One of the things I learned that was very important was self-compassion. And I know for a type A personality that's driven and in real estate and in sales, self-compassion is like, oh, that's for the wuss. But actually, it's for people that are very successful.
If you move your kind of sense of self from the contents, which is thoughts of I, thoughts of this is bad, this is good, shouldn't be happening, this, whatever it is, to just being, loving, connected presence, which are actually the 3 components of compassion.
So Kristin Neff is a leading author in this field, and she's been doing research for many, many years. And she first wrote the book called Self-Compassion. And in it, she goes into detail about the neuroscience of self-compassion and why it's important, and also how it makes you just more open to other people as well. And for me, that's also being a better parent. So in the podcast, she talks about the intention. Talk to yourself as if you were a friend. There's many times where we are nicer to our friends and our family rather than ourselves. So instead of like, hey, you know what? That's terrible, Sisi. You could have done better. Go for it. Instead of saying that, maybe in a more positive way, recognizing the situation. Hey, you know what? This is a tough situation. You're doing the best that you can. And next time we're going to learn and do better. So something a little bit more caring goes a long way when the person is in struggle. So it's recognizing yourself first, and then as you get more self-compassionate, you can extend that to other people in your life. There are so many times as a mom and as a real estate agent, as well as an entrepreneur, that I'm running between several different things, several different meetings, several different hats. And, I always want to be the best that I can be in any of those situations. But sometimes I forget stuff, and sometimes I leave kids' basketball stuff behind and I have to go back and get it. But instead of reacting and getting mad at myself or getting mad at my kid or whatever the situation is, I tend to believe that the self-compassion helps me to have a space between reaction and reply. So there was a time when I got a phone call from school, one of my boys got in trouble, and usually I would just jump into it, just the emotion first, and react based upon maybe my historical knowledge of what was the situation, how the teacher was, how my child was, and I would just respond. But in this situation where I have a little bit more breathing space and have been doing a lot of work, I have now that distance, and instead of just reacting into the emotion, I pause and I reply. And usually my reply is based out of curiosity versus accusation. So expressing curiosity is like, oh, well, tell me a little bit more of what happened, and exploring the possibilities of the result or the solution versus just jumping into a recommendation based upon historical information. So I really love Kristin Neff's book, and I also really encourage anybody that's interested to look at what the Hoffman Process is. It's been very instrumental in my life and my development, and I believe strongly in it. So, and it goes well with anything. It's not religious or anything, along those lines. But I do encourage anybody that is willing to do self-work and healing to take a look at Kristin Neff's work for self-compassion, and also at the Hoffman Process. If you have any questions, please go ahead and DM me, because I'm very much available and I want to be of service to you. So I appreciate you. If there's any questions about real estate, of course, you can reach out to me as well. And have a beautiful and blessed day. Aloha.